Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 11:30 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards, fire up your fingers, and come join the conversation. Hey everybody, I'm Mike. This is Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and you are watching The Right of the People. Although it is not Friday, it is in fact Thursday, the 10th of October at 5 o'clock, give or take, p.m. I am going to be working a overtime shift tomorrow, so I won't be around at 11:30 and available to do the show. And I didn't want to bail on you guys completely, so we're going to do it right now. Got a few things to talk about. What's that, Night Strike?
More emphasis on the take, but yes.
Yes, absolutely right. So we are going to go ahead and do this today. I'd like to say hello to my panel. Obviously, we have Mike from GunTube, a.k.a. Night Strike. How you doing, sir?
Working hard or hardly working. I can't decide which.
Maybe you're working hard at hardly working?
No, I'm working hard.
Good.
Unfortunately. But yeah, I'm doing all right. Thanks for the invite. And yeah, only you can ensure your Second Amendment rights.
That's right. I'd also like to welcome back for his second visit on the panel, Jason Spoon from Spoon CCW. How you doing, sir?
Good, you?
If I was any better, I'd be under investigation. I'm telling you.
Well, I know a couple of people who are, so.
Man, it's a good day today. We do have some stuff to talk about, though. So let's. Oh wait, I gotta actually get in here and set my stuff up the right way right now. That my topic's all bass-ackwards on this. Go figure, right? Amateur hour at its best. So this week we have some proof that no matter how much you restrict the rights of your citizens, no matter how hard you make it for them to get access to weapons, no matter how hard you try to thwart the plans of evil, evil will find a way. Over in Europe this week, there were 2 incidents with people murdered, despite their draconian gun laws that they have over there. The first being in Austria. It was an act what our media would call a mass shooting. Let's go ahead and talk about that. This is a piece from Breitbart from, October 6th by A.W.R. Hawkins. Austria, man shoots 5 despite licensing background check requirements. A 25-year-old man used a pistol to kill his ex-girlfriend and 4 others at the Tyrolean ski resort in Kitzbühel, despite gun licensing and in-depth background check requirements. University of Sydney's gunpolicy.org reports that Austria requires would-be gun owners to get a license, and those wishing to obtain that license must pass a background check which considers criminal and mental health records. Ammunition sales are controlled by the license too, inasmuch as ammunition sales are limited to persons who possess the license. For Midnight Range out there, that means that you have to have the license to own a firearm in order to buy ammunition. Just to make that clear. Gunpolicy.org reports that private possession of handguns, pistols, and revolvers is permitted only with special authorization. The New York Post reports that the alleged gunman in Austria used a pistol. What? He didn't use an assault. I thought assault rifles were weapons of choice for killers. Deutsche Welle credits APA with reporting that the suspect allegedly confessed to the killings. They reported that the man allegedly went to police after the killings and said, "I have just murdered 5 people." The shootings reportedly occurred after the man saw his ex-girlfriend with her new boyfriend and a disagreement ensued. He allegedly showed up later at her family's home and, get this, used his brother's pistol to kill his ex-girlfriend and 4 others. So, wait a minute. Hold, stop. Are you trying to tell me, and maybe I'm reading this wrong, maybe I'm confused. Are you trying to tell me that a bad guy ignored the background check and licensing requirements to get a gun? No, that can't happen. Discuss. Jackasses.
Gee, imagine my surprise.
I know, right?
Imagine my shock.
Midnight says, "Oh, thanks. Cough, cough. Hey, man. Anytime." Oh, and then he called me a jerk. Well, yeah, sure. I'll own that. Hey, Jason, are you still with us? Or have your connectivity issues booted you? I think he may have been booted.
I think he might be having connectivity problems.
Looks like there's some technical difficulties ensuing. Well, hey, this is my show, right?
This is why I always say, don't always rely on Wi-Fi. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
And in this case, probably not.
Well, I can tell you that he is at the gun shop, and that's what's up with this.
Yeah,
He's got the Wi-Fi going on, and hopefully he'll be able to get back in. But wait, there's more, as they say, because
goody.
this 5 people murdered in Austria weren't the only mass killing or attempted mass killing in Europe this week. Because outside a synagogue in Germany, an anti-Semitic douche-rag decided
Well,
that
they
he
still
was
have
gonna kill
synagogues
some
in Germany?
people. I'm sorry?
They still have synagogues in Germany?
Yes, apparently. I don't necessarily know that if I followed the Jewish faith that I would live there, but hey, they have a right to live wherever they want to, just like anybody else.
I know it's been a while, but why would you take that kind of abuse and then either continue to stay there or go back? I'm just saying, John.
Why do people still live in California?
Good point.
It's home. So, German synagogue shooting that left 2 dead on Yom Kippur unsettles Jewish community, by Nicole Dara, Fox News. After an anti-Semitic attack on a synagogue in Germany Wednesday left 2 people dead, officials are working to reassure the country's Jewish community, which is unsettled amid rising concerns about far-right extremism and anti-Semitism. The attack on the synagogue in the city of Halle fell on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish calendar, during which worshippers atone for their sins. Nearly 80 people, including 10 Americans, were inside the place of worship when a heavily armed perpetrator opened fire. The suspect, Stefan B., a 27-year-old from the state of Saxony-Anhalt, where Halle is located, allegedly fired what appeared to be homemade weapons. What? Homemade weapons? But there's strict gun control in Germany. How could he get weapons? Prosecutors said he fatally shot a woman on the street outside the synagogue and a man at a nearby kebab shop. The attack, with the gunman ranting about Jews and denying the Holocaust in English, was live-streamed on the online streaming platform Twitch. It apparently was filmed using a head-mounted camera and showed the perpetrator driving up to the synagogue in a car packed with ammunition and apparent explosives. The suspect, a German citizen who had been charged with 2 counts of murder and 9 counts of attempted murder, planned the attack. Germany's chief federal prosecutor, Peter Frank, said Thursday he allegedly wanted to carry out a massacre in a synagogue and had roughly 9 pounds of explosives in his car. Frank told reporters that in Karlsruhe that what we experienced yesterday was terror. He said that the suspect wanted to create a worldwide effect by live streaming his attack, in which 2 people were killed outside the synagogue. He wanted to encourage others to imitate him. Max Privorotsky, the head of Hala's Jewish, good Lord, I can't speak today. The head of Hala's Jewish community said there was security outside the synagogue when the shooting happened, but Josef Schuster, the head of Germany's Jewish community, said there were no police guards outside, what he called scandalous. Synagogues are often protected by police in Germany because of anti-Semitism and right-wing extremism, and police in 2 other eastern cities, Dresden and Leipzig, stepped up security at synagogues after the shooting in Halle. Schuster said members of the congregation on Wednesday described waiting behind locked doors for the police to arrive, which took more than 10 minutes. I'm convinced that if there had been police protection there, in all probability the assailant would not have been able to attack a second site, he said. Privorotsky said he watched on surveillance video as a suspect tried to break into the synagogue. That was a shock for us. That was Yom Kippur. All phones were switched off. We had to understand what was going on first, then switch on my phone and then call the police, he told the Associated Press. It was really panic, but I have to say after that, when the police came, we continued with the worship service. That lasted another 3 hours, the synagogue worship service. Good for you. Germany's president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, laid flowers outside the synagogue and met with community representatives, the first of several officials who were due to visit. Germany's domestic intelligence agency has said that the number of anti-Semitic acts of violence rose to 48 last year from 21 the previous year. The agency also said that the number of far-right extremists rose by 100 to 24,100 people last year, with more than half of them considered potentially violent. So that goes to show you that despite harsh gun laws, strict rules about who can acquire firearms, how they have to be stored, what ammunition you can buy, how everything has to be done by the book with Teutonic thoroughness, I might add, this criminal was able to gain not only homemade weapons, but explosives and carry out this attack. Gun control does nothing. But these people know this because, again, gun control is never about the gun. It's always about the control. And this proves that gun control is absolutely worthless because evil will find a way. Gentlemen, you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, you can enact all the laws in the world, but people won't follow them.
Here's an idea. Why don't we just make shooting people illegal?
I know, right? I mean, because if you make shooting people illegal, nobody will do it, right?
I got a better idea. Why don't we make evil illegal?
Now you are treading on copyrighted territory here.
It's not copyrighted.
He should copyright it.
Well, you know, the devil's in the details.
Yes, as Armament and Axes says all the time, ban evil. That'll just solve the problem.
Ban evil.
Shooting Chef says not only do you need to apply for a license in Austria, you also need to see a shrink and pass a psych test in order to get the license. Additionally, you need to do a 5-hour safety course. Or you could do what the guy in Austria did and just, steal your brother's gun.
Steal your brother's.
Or what the guy in Germany did and make your own. Ridiculous. And this is the kind of ineffective garbage that they want to bring to us. Matter of fact, they point at Europe and other places like Australia and New Zealand as models for what they want to do. And speaking of New Zealand, you're crazy if you don't see a maybe not a cause and effect, but a definite correlation between that jackass at the Christchurch Mosque who committed that atrocity, live streaming everything that he was doing in real time, and this copycat SOB doing this at the synagogue in Germany.
Well,
they gave
That's the thing.
They gave that Christchurch monster exactly what he wanted. And this guy thought he was going to get the same thing. You were saying something, Midnight? Hello?
Midnight.
Not Midnight. Night Strike. What am I doing? Yeah, well, I'm out there listening to Midnight talk about his crabs.
Was Jason that was saying something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jason, go ahead. You wanted to say something?
These aren't intelligent people we're dealing with. They can't come up with anything on their own, so they just copycat things that they see. I mean,
well, I think
they're mentally, there's something wrong with them mentally for somebody to do something like this. So it's not like they're, coming up with this kind of stuff as an epiphany. They've seen it somewhere. If we stop, idolizing these people that do this kind of stuff, then, maybe some of the copycats can quit.
Yeah, that's a good point. If we and I think the media is. I really need to get a tinfoil hat that I can switch on and off during the show, because, I think the media is willingly complicit in this and does it intentionally so that there will be more of these, so that there will be more impetus and spurs to call for more gun control and advance that agenda. That, and if it bleeds, it leads, and they want to sell papers and get views and have people click like. That's what I think that they deliberately publicize this to encourage it. Speaking of encouragement, let me go out into the chat and say hello to everybody that's out there. I apologize for kind of forgetting about you guys. Normally I do that first before I get into it, but I'm just so excited today. I had to get into all of this. Let's see. Calaveras 32 Special was first, but Patriot in the Dark was first for the 2A, so there you go. Midnight Range TM was in, and he's still lurking around out there. We got
Watch
the Port
out.
Conservative. Who else? They were talking for a long time before the chat. Thanks for sticking around, guys. I'm waiting. I appreciate that. Gunpowder Beauty in the house. Hello, ma'am. Jason Stewart's with us. David Campbell. Hi, Dave. How you doing? Let's see. Wise Guys Are Us TM. I hate European magazine releases more than my wife's complaining. Yeah, I can get that. The Tennessee Gun Guy. Who else? Ghost Tactical. The ghostest with the mostest. How you doing, sir? Let's see. We got 9mm. Hello. I don't know how you do it. How on earth do you put up with that?
With Pancake Boy.
Yeah. Goodness. That is one lucky fry cook. Let me see.
Either that or she's a saint.
Well, that could be. Weston Probst is out there, shooting chef. David Ramirez. Green Badger Outdoors. Rich White. Hello, everybody. Glad you're here. Thanks for coming. Hopefully this isn't going to be too much of a train wreck and shit show for everybody. Looks like we got, is that Squibload in the house on the panel there?
Present.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I had to wait for the evil plant manager to leave before I could put in my earbuds, but I'm here.
I bet. But hey, you know what? What they don't know won't hurt them, right?
I can do my job back here with the stuff I've got lined up and have earbuds in, and it's not going to slow me down.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. As long as you're being safe about what you're doing at work, shouldn't be an issue. But, some people are just like that. And if anybody's wondering, that's iced tea and lemonade. Really good. Okay, so next up, let me move on to my next bit of topic. Does everybody here on the panel know who Michael Drejka is?
Negative.
Nope.
What about you, Night Strike?
That's the Florida man convicted of manslaughter in parking lot, isn't it?
Absolutamente. That is the Florida man that shot that gentleman. He got into an argument with the fellow's girl,
he
wife,
started that
fiance.
fight, which caused him to pull out his gun because he feared for his life because he started the whole conflict by doing something that wasn't his job.
Yeah, he was the handicapped parking space police, and he confronted this woman about parking in a handicapped spot and started loudly and vehemently arguing with her. Naturally, she argued back. The decedent, the fellow that he ended up shooting, was a big, tall dude, and Drake is an older man. He came out of the store and come up on him and shoved him violently to the ground. Okay, I can kind of understand, him doing that. Someone's there talking loud and nasty to your wife, girlfriend, significant other, whatever, and you want to come out and defend her. I get that. I get that. Well, when that happens, Drejka pulls his pistol, points it at the man. And I get that too. Younger, stronger guy comes up, knocks you to the ground. I've known of people to be killed just from that because they hit the back of their head on a rock that was on the ground and gave a depressed skull fracture and they died. So I can understand that. The guy starts walking towards him. So you pull your pistol out because you're afraid he's going to put the boots to you. Totally understand that, even though you should have never been in the argument to begin with, but that's another issue. The crux of the matter is the victim here turned away and started to retreat. And that's when Drejka opened fire. And he ended up killing the man in front of his son and his significant other, his wife. Well, fast forward to today, and Drejka was found guilty and sentenced today. So let's go ahead and talk about that. This is from Fox News by Nicole Dara. Florida man who claims self-defense after shooting man over parking spot, sentenced. A Florida man who claimed he fatally shot an unarmed man in self-defense after the two squabbled over a handicapped parking space was sentenced Thursday to 20 years in prison. Michael Drejka, 49, was found guilty of manslaughter in August in the death of Marquise McLaughlin, a 28-year-old man in the parking lot of a Clearwater convenience store in July 2018. Described by Circuit Court Judge Joseph Bulon as a wannabe police officer and a self-appointed handicapped parking space monitor, I would say that's probably pretty accurate, because keep in mind, folks, this isn't the first time Drejka has done this, where he's confronted people and gotten in altercations with people over handicapped spaces. Drejka confronted McLaughlin's girlfriend, questioning why she parked in a handicapped reserved parking space without a permit. During the initial encounter, McLaughlin was inside the store with his 5-year-old son. When he left the store, he shoved Drejka to the ground, surveillance video showed. Drejka then pulled out a Glock 40 caliber handgun and shot McLaughlin in the chest. He later told investigators he was in fear of a physical threat to his safety. McLaughlin died at the hospital 30 minutes later. The shooting brought national attention to Florida's controversial Stand Your Ground law, which, since enacted in 2005, established the right for gun owners to apply lethal force to defend themselves against threats regardless of whether it was possible to retreat first, even though this was never actually a Stand Your Ground case, but I digress. Pinellas County Sheriff Bob Galtieri initially did not arrest Drejka, saying the controversial law precluded him from doing so, but Drejka had never asserted it. 3 weeks passed before Pinellas Pasco State Attorney Bernie McCabe announced that his office was formally arresting and charging Drejka with manslaughter. The case touched on race, given that Drejka was white and McLaughlin was black. Drejka on Thursday was sentenced to 2 decades in prison with credit for 92 days served. He faced up to 30 years behind bars. So, as a takeaway from this, there's a couple things I think. Number one, if you're carrying a firearm, you cannot afford to begin an argument. This has to stay at home. You have to leave that in your pocket. You can't pull it out. This needs to keep shut. Your ego needs to go away. You know, I've been in these situations. Those of you who watch the show know about the Polar Pop and Cheddar Brat incident at Circle K. You know, the infamous clearing of the throat. What I should have done in that instance was kept my mouth shut and let the guy run his mouth. Big deal. Until he tried to put his hands on me, should have kept my yap shut. In this instance, Drejka should have kept his nose where it belongs and not in somebody else's parking habits. Furthermore, when he did get into the altercation and the man started turning away, because I've seen the video, I'm not going to play it because it's been played to death over and over, no pun intended, but this guy turned away and Drejka sat there and watched him turn away. There was at least a good second, and then Drejka pulled the trigger. I think he deserved everything he got from this. You know, when that threat's done, the gun gets put away too. Jason, I know you're a self-defense and use of force instructor. What's your take on this?
He's got two things going utterly wrong right from the beginning. You know, here in the state of Ohio, as long as, you know, you have started the altercation, be it verbal, physical, whatever it is, that's kind of one strike. I mean, the law says that you cannot have started or aggravated this situation if you're going to use your firearm in defense of yourself. So there's strike one. Strike two, just like you pointed out, once the guy turns and goes to leave, he's leaving the fight. There's no more threat to you. You can't, you know, open fire. You have no indication that he's coming back to harm you. So, you know, the fella that did the shooting in this particular instance, he got what he deserved. He was in the wrong. This unfortunate incident should have never transpired like it was. If you decide that you're going to, you know, play parking lot police, you know, you got to understand the consequences and what you're allowed to do and what you're not allowed to do. So
yep,
that's my take on it.
I agree 100%. So looks like we have someone else on the panel. 5C. Who is that? I don't recognize 5C.
You might, even if I haven't been out for a while. 50 cal.
Oh, 50 cal. How you doing?
Oh, pretty good. I finally found some time to actually drop into one of these things while I'm doing some mandatory work training.
Oh. Hey, what better way to do it? So,
and it had nothing going on in my ears, so I thought I'd see what you guys were talking about.
Good. Well, you know what? I'm glad to have you, man. It's been a while since I've seen you. What do you think about this Drejka thing?
I do not know enough to comment on that. I'll read up on it while you guys are going over it and then see if I can add anything.
Okay. Well, hey, man. Glad to have you. You're always welcome anytime, brother.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Squib, what's your take?
You know, when this happened, there were a lot of people that are saying that if the community turns on this guy, that, you know, it could affect self-defense as far as if any of us did it, and, you know, all this don't be an armchair quarterback kind of thing and blah, 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 blah. But the way that I got my concealed carry training was really conservative. I've actually had some people be critical when I told them about the training that I had, because they're saying that what I got would prevent me from acting when I need to. And I think what's between my ears will determine if I act when I need to. I'd rather err on the side of not escalating it or not breaking the law or not incident. I'm not saying I want to go home, right? But there are some people that do this, the whole shoot first, ask questions later, drag them back into your house kind of training. And that's on the opposite end of the spectrum. I think what I need to do is when I go to retrain, I need to find something that's kind of in the middle, but I don't want an instructor that would encourage this sort of behavior. I tend to lean more conservative on, do I even pull the gun at all? Do I even tell them, hey, do you really want to do this? I've got a gun or something like that, because people have been burned in the past just for doing that. They de-escalate the situation, it's over, and next thing you know, they got the cuffs on them because the other person called the cops first. So in this situation, he asked for trouble, he got trouble, he made a bad judgment call, and now some kid's an orphan, and it embarrassed the whole community, and I'm not with the people that say we need to stand beside this guy, he was justified, and blah, blah, blah. And I've also made comment more than once, for those states that have constitutional carry, or they have fairly decent concealed carry or open carry laws, or they have castle doctrine, or they have any of the laws that we would like to see nationwide, if you live there and you carry for self-defense, you not only represent yourself, you represent your state, and you represent all the other states that want to get better laws. Yep. And when you make a bad judgment call, and it's going to happen, all right, even law enforcement make bad judgment calls, okay? But when you make that bad judgment call, you just put that state next to you that was considering getting concealed carry, or getting constitutional carry, or getting stand your ground, or getting castle doctrine, or getting whatever it is, right? One step back, because that's the incident the politicians will look at and go, see what happens when you got a state that allows this sort of thing? Absolutely. I mean, I've said a couple times before things like, in Florida, you can just blast somebody and get away with it. And I've had people from Florida get mad at me. And I'm really not trying to belittle their state or them. And it might get taken that way. But what I'm talking about is when you have the privilege of having better laws than another state, and I'm not saying Florida has the best laws, but it has better laws than some other places. Even though it's really not a privilege, it's a right, but we have to almost treat it like a privilege when we get our rights back. You got to think about how you represent.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We as a community need to point out when someone has done something wrong. We need to police ourselves. We cannot stand by somebody when they've done something wrong. Because all we do is make the rest of us look bad. We need to point out, no, that guy was an idiot. He did something wrong. Here's what he should have done right. And he deserves what he gets. Now, if someone does something right and is being persecuted for an unjust reason, that's one thing. That's the person we need to stand behind. That's the person that we need to support. But this is not that poster child. This is not that person. He did wrong. He was wrong from the start to the finish. That's what I think. Well, we had a couple people get booted. What is this? Well, if you're watching on Facebook, I'm going to go ahead and stop that broadcast. Come on over to YouTube. Budget Guns and Gear Reviews. We're doing this live right here. I'm going to stop this on Facebook so that I can devote the bandwidth to running this show and not getting people booted. So Thanks for watching over there. Come on over here. That's if there's anybody even watching over there on Facebook. There may not be.
Budget, if you're going to stream to a source, I would recommend you use something like Restream if you want to stream to Facebook and YouTube at the same time.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get into that.
Because that way, when you live stream, you're using all of your network's bandwidth to stream out elsewhere, okay? And if you stream to more than one source from your home location, you're double or tripling the amount of bandwidth you're sending out.
Yeah.
And if you have a shitty connection in the first place, well,
I don't.
Guess what happens?
I have a good connection. It's just, I don't know.
It's not good enough for this.
Apparently. So if I'm gonna keep streaming to Facebook, I'm just gonna have to get Restream or something. But we got Jason back, so that's good.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the internet or something, but that's the second time that it just ditched me.
Yeah, it's probably, as we were just talking about, a combination of my bandwidth and your Wi-Fi. Not being together, not being strong enough. So I cut out my Facebook feed to solve the bandwidth issue anyway. So, yeah. And exactly, to wrap that up, somebody does something wrong, we need to point it out. We can't afford to circle the wagons like the NRA is doing and stand behind someone who's doing wrong and make the rest of us tarred with that same brush. But the NRA is a whole nother kettle of fish.
Yeah, the NRA is... Yeah.
Now on to some good news. Those of you
good
who...
news?
I think a week or two ago I talked about the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus New York City case, where New York City had the law that said that you could not transport your firearm outside your home except to one of 7 ranges. Even you couldn't transport it outside the city. If you were leaving the city, you had to stay in your home. You couldn't transport it to a shooting competition out of state. You couldn't transport it to your house outside the city. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't take it to go visit your Uncle Bill in West Virginia to go hunting. Nope, you couldn't do that. It had to stay in your house. New York State Rifle and Pistol Association filed suit. Eventually, that suit made its way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court said that they would hear the case. Well, upon hearing that, New York City decided to change the ordinance in an effort to moot the case. In other words, since that ordinance was no longer in effect, hey, look, we fixed it. You don't have to hear this. And they did that because they knew that the Supreme Court took this case because they're going to rule against them. So they wanted to try and short circuit that. Well, there was a mootness hearing the other day. Guess what happened?
The Supreme Court
SCOTUS
said no.
said, nope. This is from the firearms blog. From Benjamin F. It posted 7 hours ago. Said, New York City mootness argument denied. NYSRPA case going to oral argument. The Supreme Court on Monday issued a preliminary rejection of the New York City's motion to moot the lawsuit filed against them by the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association. The case will be heard at oral arguments on December 2nd. Not December 12th, as others were pointing out. It's December 2nd. On July 22nd of this year, the New York City filed a suggestion of mootness with the Supreme Court. In it, NYC argued that the case against them was moot due to a rule change. What does this mean? Essentially, New York City was asking the Supreme Court to toss the case. They based this argument on the grounds that the lawsuit was no longer relevant. Those readers who have been following the case may remember that New York City issued a rule change designed to do just that. By giving NYSRPA the bare minimum of what they asked for in the form of slightly loosened travel restrictions, NYC was hoping to kill the case. Basically, imagine you have a neighbor, let's call him Bill. Bill's fence is 5 feet over the official property line. You decide to sue Bill to get him to move his fence. While you're preparing to file the lawsuit, you realize that the official property line is wrong and that the fence is actually 10 feet onto your property. Bill knows this, and he moves the fence 5 feet back. Then he tells the judge that since he's done that, you should throw out the case. After all, he moved the fence. This is a good, if imperfect, analogy for the sequence of events in NYSRPA versus NYC. Today, the judge told Bill he would not throw out the case. However, the judge also didn't say Bill was totally wrong for asking. The exact wording of the order is, the respondent's suggestion of mootness is denied. The question of mootness will be subject to further consideration at oral argument, and the parties should be prepared to discuss it. As you can see, the Supreme Court is willing to entertain the idea that NYC has rendered the case moot. However, they want the argument made in person while discussing all of the relevant facts of the case. I'm hoping to be able to attend the oral arguments in D.C. With any luck, the next update on this case from me will be after the arguments themselves.
And so, that's from who?
This is from Benjamin F. from the firearms blog.
Okay.
So, what I think is going to happen here, and I could be wrong, again, not a lawyer, just loudmouth with the camera and a microphone, but what I think is going to happen here is that they're going to make these arguments on the mootness during the oral arguments. The court's going to go, yeah, I don't care. And they're going to continue to hear the oral arguments of the case to judge the case on its merits. I think that if they were willing to moot the case, they could have just done it. And they didn't. I think they want to hear this case because I think that there are some different things there are a couple different ways this could go. Now they could issue a very narrow ruling that only applies to this case and only to the city of New York and the state of New York. They could do that. Or, and here's what I think they might do, they could rule more broadly and apply this ruling across the country. And not only that, expand on what they're talking about. Because one of the questions at issue, one of the arguments here is the level of scrutiny level of judicial scrutiny that's applied to Second Amendment cases. Right now, it isn't strict scrutiny, which is the highest standard of scrutiny, as it would be, say, a First Amendment case. I mean, imagine if you had to have a license to own a book, and then you weren't allowed to take that book anywhere other than between your home and a library. That kind of crap wouldn't fly. The First Amendment would specifically prevent that. Well, they need to apply that same sort of logic, that same sort of scrutiny to the Second Amendment, and hopefully they'll do that, and we will no longer be having a second-class right as we do now. What do you guys think? Is this
that sounds like a horror story out of a national socialist country?
But I think it's a better analogy than the fence thing.
Well, yeah, I'm not arguing, but that's scary, right there. Even if it's analogy.
Yeah. So hopefully, on the 2nd, they'll decide that, you know what, they're just going to completely deny the mootness and go forward with it. Hear the oral arguments.
Hopefully.
So Midnight says, I can't read, so I don't buy books. Can I get a new analogy, por favor? No. Learn to read. Dick and Jane, C-Spot Run. A, B, C, D, all that good stuff.
I would ask that so-called chef, if he can't read, then why does he have all those cooking books?
Yeah. Pretty hard to follow a recipe, huh?
Exactly.
Rich White says, change book to audiobook, Midnight. He probably can't hear either.
Right.
He probably can't hear. So, hopefully that is going to be decided in our favor. We'll see. I think that one way or the other, it's going to be decided on the side of the Second Amendment. It's just how big of an impact the court's going to decide to make is really the question.
I agree.
Ghost Tactile says he uses pictures.
He is the resident expert on crayons.
That's right. That's right. He might read pictures, but he doesn't write with crayons. But then again, neither does Ghost. He's too busy eating the crayons, right?
That's why I said he's the resident expert.
All right. And last in our main topics, but certainly not least.
Last
but certainly not least is this article posted on AmmoLand today. It's an opinion piece by someone really dang smart. A gun owner's worst enemy. You may know them well. Opinion by Michael Kreitzer of Budget Guns and Gear Reviews. AmmoLand.com, USA. Have you heard the cliche about the paranoid not being paranoid when they really are out to get you? For years, the anti-rights, anti-freedom crowd have been telling us that we who support the Second Amendment are just a bunch of paranoid gun nuts because no one's really coming for our beloved pistols, rifles, and shotguns. Of course, to believe that the hoplophobes are not coming for our guns, we would have to ignore the decades-long campaign in which they've been engaged. If you're reading this, I'm sure you've been paying attention to the myriad of incremental steps that the antis have taken to slowly erode our constitutionally protected liberties, one common-sense gun safety measure at a time. You'd also have to ignore the current crop of Democratic presidential candidates and their inflammatory rhetoric regarding the Second Amendment. From Kamala Harris's threatened executive action to Beto O'Rourke's hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, The entire
And
pack has been
1847s.
falling all over themselves to outdo one another in a bid to show that each one is more anti-gun, read anti-freedom, than the last. Finally, you'd have to ignore the willing complicity of the mainstream legacy media and its apparent eagerness to sensationalize and exploit any atrocities committed with a firearm, even before the blood is dried and the bodies are taken away. In short, you'd have to be an utter fool to believe that no one's coming for your guns. But even with all those forces arrayed against the Second Amendment, a gun owner's worst enemy isn't the anti-gun politicians and their enthusiastic allies in the media. Our worst enemy isn't even those well-meaning fools who believe them. Nope. Our worst enemy comes from within. It's us. Or more specifically, it's our apparent apathy. I've seen it happen too many times. During the lead up to the Hughes Amendment, even though I was still young, I was paying attention. And I distinctly remember hearing gun owners say, "I don't own a machine gun, so I don't care." As the 1994 assault weapons ban was being debated, it was, "I got my shotgun and hunting rifle. I don't need no AR-15. True story. That was my dad that said that. More recently, it was bump stocks. Never heard of them. Sounds stupid to me. Sure, there are a few gun owners who stand up to be counted, who raise their voices to be heard. Most, however, are seemingly content to write a check to the NRA, GOA, SAF, or whatever alphabet-lettered gun rights group they prefer and say, "Well, I did my part. What's on TV?" Now, don't get me wrong. Those groups are important, and they all do good work on gun owners' behalf. But it's not enough. Allowing someone else to fight for your rights only isn't going to cut it anymore. Since the 2019 Gun Rights Policy Conference, we've been handed an opportunity to throw off the stifling pall of apathy that has gripped so many gun owners. While at the GRPC, Rob Pincus was kind enough to come on my podcast and announce the Second Amendment rally being held on November 2nd, 2019 in Washington, D.C. It's a true nonpartisan grassroots effort to give us a chance to come together and show those who would curtail our freedom that we will not stand for it. Unfortunately, the last week or so has seen the couch commandos emerge in droves on the internet and give voice to every excuse they can think of to dismiss it. We'll look bad because no one will show up. And there's not enough time to plan. And none of those big gun groups are sponsoring it, are being used to justify their apathy. I'm even hearing, "I can't carry in D.C., so I won't go." Really? I would submit that the fact that you can't carry in D.C. is why you should go. Maybe I'm wrong, though. It is easier to sit in the basement and shovel in more cheese puffs, right? We have an opportunity to make history on November 2nd, 2019. Some estimates put the number of U.S. gun owners at over 100 million people. Can you imagine the statement it would make if even 0.1% of that number got off their duffs and came to D.C.? I understand that there are legitimate reasons that folks can't come. Work, finances, family commitments, and family obligations are powerful forces that can hold people in place. But if something is preventing you from attending, you can still help. Go to the secondamendmentrally.com to register and get more information. Share the rally's website, secondamendmentrally.com, all over your social media. Create and print a flyer. Then ask your local businesses to display it. Talk to folks at your range, scout troop, book club, car wash, or any other place you find people and let them know. If the only thing keeping you from going is time, then funnel a few dollars towards someone who has the time to attend but may lack the funds so they can represent you. Whatever you do, though, don't continue letting our own apathy be our worst enemy. This cause is far too important. So that's what I think about this, about gun owner apathy. What about you guys? Am I completely off base here?
Well, you're always completely off base.
Well, yes, but on this particular topic.
Well, again, the chat is saying that's some second or third level 2-bit content creating right there. Consider you're reading your own article off of a website. Just
yes,
saying.
I am.
That's some next level stuff right there. But that I would say that was a good piece.
Hey, even if it hadn't been published on MLN, you can bet I was going to read it somewhere. I wasn't letting that go to waste.
Right. That was a good piece.
So I'm a big proponent of going to rallies, whether it's on a weekend or a weekday, whether the politicians are in the building looking at us or whether the news crews are out there or not. I think they're good, and I've had mostly positive experiences going. There are some people that don't believe in going, but maybe they do other things that I don't do or don't do enough of. I tell people, if you've never gone, try going at least once. If you don't like it, don't go again. But you're not going to know until you experience one. Our numbers matter. When I go to out-of-state rallies, I don't wear a shirt that says, hey, I'm not from here. So they have no idea. All they know is, look at how many guys are out there with guns. Or gals. Guys and gals, whatever. Yeah. I mean, I use guys generically, but there's the PC people out there too. Okay, so the whole point being is that your presence does matter, even if you think it doesn't. Now, there's lots of people with excuses. They live nearby, but, or, well, I could, but, And what's funny is people will take time off work to go to a movie premiere. They'll take time off work to go hunting. They'll take time off work to go to a concert, because the next day they're going to be hungover, whatever it is. You're telling me you can't spare a vacation day for this if that's what you need? Now, exactly. I live 10 hours away from DC. The only reason I know that is it's 4 hours to Budget's house, and it's 6 more hours to DC from there. Now, I get off of work at 10:30 at night. I roll into my driveway about 11:15 at night. It's the end of the week. I am tired on Friday night more so than any night of the week. And the rally's on a Saturday morning. I'm going to go home and get cleaned up, jump in my truck, drive to Budget, and I'm going to let him drive the rest of the way to DC, because 10 hours, no, I'd probably be a statistic. I'd be a traffic accident. Sometime around 6 in the morning, I'd probably pass out and crash. So I'm taking advantage of an offer from a friend to hop a ride. And we're sharing costs and things like that. And we're trying to get as many people in together on that, not only just to save on costs and not only just to get bodies out there, but just so we can, hang out together and do this sort of thing. You're going to tell me that you don't know anybody else that you might be able to carpool with to cut the cost down? Or what if you do get off work at the same time I do and you go, there's no way I can be on the road to DC the next morning. I'll be too tired. Okay, well, this is where the community comes together. It's not always about send me money. It's about, hey, I've carpooled to Lansing with Smeggy twice, because one of us or the other had a little bit of financial difficulty, and we shared the cost. It was a great thing. All right, so it doesn't even have to be going all the way from, your state, 2, 3, 4 states over to Washington, D.C. It could be within your own state. So that's why these social media networks for our community are good. Despite all the division everybody's always talking about, which I actually think is a good thing, we have an opportunity to network out, talk to each other, share our resources, pool our resources, and go to events like this, as well as just share information. Or, hey, did you know, about this going on, or whatever it is. To take advantage of the stuff that is already there. If somebody's already going and they're going by themselves, reach out to other people that might want to go, that you might know, that might be within driving distance, and see if they want to meet you somewhere or whatever. And, it's a lot better than sitting in the car for 10 hours or 6 hours all by yourself. So the more the merrier. Now, I will put this disclaimer out there. If my truck breaks down or we have a family issue, no, family comes first, and it's going to be a little bit difficult. It's happened before. When I tried to go to the Great Outdoor Show, my truck broke down, the day before. But and I totally understand somebody who has a last-minute emergency. I totally understand somebody who has their car break down, and I mean, this is on a Friday night, Saturday morning. No garages are open, whatever it is, or whatever. And it would have been nice if the information could have come out with more than what we have, about 5 weeks notice. But still, 5 weeks is, I know we're down to 3 now, but still, that's better than just, a week's notice.
Yeah.
So maybe you got money you've been saving up for a gun. Maybe you take that money and divert it to this time. I'm actually using money that I've already started saving to go to NRA next year, next spring. I'm pulling money out of that to afford to go. So there are ways to make it happen. You just have to sometimes think outside the box and make some choices.
That's right. You can make it happen. But I also understand that there are legitimate reasons why someone couldn't. There are. I mean, let's just face it. What I'm talking about are the bullshit excuses and the just wanting to tear something down just to tear something down because you don't like it. That's what I'm talking about. And that's, people look for excuses not to do things, and they'll latch on to anything, and we just had a guy quit yesterday on some, frankly, BS excuses. That's why I'm working a 12 tomorrow, and then a couple days later working another one. So, it's people come up with the lamest, most BS excuses they can to do something that they want to or not do something that they don't want to. And that's all I can't carry in DC, so I'm not going. Bullshit. That's why you should be going, because you can't carry in DC, because we don't have national reciprocity, because DC doesn't recognize anything from anywhere else, because you can't even have a round of ammunition. By the way, if you're driving in, make sure you clean your car out and go over it with a fine-tooth comb so you don't even have one stray round of ammunition. I still have to do that yet in your vehicle, because if you get caught with that, they'll take you. You're done. So make sure that you're good with that. But yeah, it's these BS excuses that get me going, and the whole somebody else will take care of it attitude. Somebody else ain't going to take care of it anymore. You have to. That's my opinion on it anyway.
I'm okay with some of the people that don't participate to the level I do, because there's always going to be somebody who participates to the level I don't.
Sure.
And, they can look down at me and, hey, whatever. I'm okay either way. If somebody does more to me and go, man, you don't do enough, well, screw you. And if somebody else only does one thing, at least they're doing something.
Yes.
But there are people out there that, if you don't want to do this, you don't necessarily have to discourage someone else from doing it, especially if they're kind of on the fence. If they're on the fence. All I'm saying is, if you've never gone to one of these, go. I guarantee you it'll be a learning experience. There's people talking about, there's going to be Antifa there and there's going to be a riot and we're all going to get arrested. It's like, it's never happened. I have never had to deal with any of that crap.
They'll stand in the background screaming for obscenities, and that'll be it.
If you even get that. Sometimes you don't even get that. Or, I don't know where to park. Dude, I pulled up to 3 parking structures within walking distance of that were full before I found a parking structure. There's always tons of them downtown everywhere. I don't know anybody that. Okay, then if you're listening to this, then you know some people.
Yep.
All you got to do is look for us. I'll be the guy with squib written on the back of my hat. Okay, that's how you find me.
Yep.
So there are just lame
I'll be
excuses
the
out there.
Shameless self-promoting whore with my logos splashed all over me. So
Yeah, bring your Sharpie, because he'll sign your body parts.
I'll sign your body parts. Just bring a Sharpie. Wow. All right, moving on to other news. We're going to go ahead and transition to Roll Call's favorite segment, the self-defense shoutouts. For those of you who are new to the show or have never stuck around to the end, self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the death or injury of the bad guy. It is where I'm reveling in the fact that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to defend themselves against the bad guy. First up, after I transition my scene, there we go, yes. First up, this is from Eyewitness News, ABC 7. Samurai sword-wielding man killed by liquor store owner on Long Island. He must have seen Highlander too many times. Port Jefferson, Long Island, WABC. Police are investigating after a man with a samurai sword was shot and killed in a liquor store on Long Island Thursday. The incident was reported at Port Jeff Liquors on the 150 block of East Main Street just after 2 p.m. Police say 50-year-old Theodore Scoville walked into the store swinging dangerously close to the owner with a 2-foot blade, and the owner shot him. Scoville was pronounced dead at the scene. Police say surveillance video matches what the store owner told them. He had a sword beneath a poncho. It seems to be without saying a word. He pulled the sword out, swung it 3 times, at least 3 times, at a very close distance to the person behind the counter, said Lieutenant Detective Kevin Byrer with the Suffolk County Police. Officials said the incident does not appear to be a robbery attempt, and the store owner's gun was legal. He's not expected to be charged. The incident is under investigation.
I have one thing to say, Budget.
What's that?
There can be only one. And in this instance,
there's one less.
See, I wasn't thinking of the whole Highlander thing. I was thinking of the whole John Belushi, Saturday Night Live. Didn't he used to have like the Samurai Deli or something?
Yes.
Yeah, but this
dude pulls a sword out from under his coat, and you don't think Highlander?
Come on.
I don't really know you.
There can be only one.
And in this case,
I've never actually seen an entire Highlander movie from beginning to end.
You haven't?
Don't watch the second one.
Don't watch the second one.
No.
I've seen parts of the one where they kill Sean Connery. That's it.
That's the first one, yeah. The first one's pretty good. The second one is absolutely wretched.
Technically, the director's cut isn't that bad, but it's still pretty bad.
Yeah, listen, you could put a bunch of paint on a turd, but it's still a turd. And that was
Guns and Geeks chat was 4 days ago, right, guys?
I know. Anyhow, last but certainly not least, alleged robber with assault rifle killed by good guy with a gun. From October 9th, AWR Hawkins. An alleged robber with an assault rifle was killed Tuesday by a good guy with a gun in an Apple store in Dallas, Texas. Fox News reports the suspect allegedly walked in around 2:30 a.m. through a door that was open for construction personnel to enter and exit. The suspect was described as being armed with an assault rifle and wearing body armor. He was shot and fatally wounded after unsuccessfully attempting to disarm the store's security guard. A Dallas police press release summarized the incident. The suspect, described as an adult black male, attempted to disarm the security officer but was unsuccessful. The security officer was able to pull his weapon and fired multiple times, striking the suspect. The suspect ran for a short distance and collapsed in the rear alley. The responding officers administered aid to the suspect prior to his transport to an area hospital, where he was pronounced deceased. CBS DFW published an Apple statement on the incident. The loss of life is a tragedy, and we are grateful that no one else was involved. Apple cares deeply about the safety of our customers and employees, and we are committed to providing a secure environment for all who enter our stores. Except, with unlocked doors and stuff. But there you have it, folks. Good guy with a gun stops bad guy with a gun twice. Despite what NPR, MSNBC, CBS, etc., EIO wants to have you believe. So we'll go ahead and start wrapping this up. I'd like to thank 50 Caliber Karma for dropping by for the first time in a while. I hope you can make it some more, brother. I would also like to thank Jason Spoon from Spoon CCW and Armory here in wonderful Minerva, Ohio. Check out his YouTube channel, Spoon's CCW. If you haven't already, go on over there and give him a sub. He's got some good, informative stuff. Up here still on the panel, we have the irascible yet lovable Squib Load. Do you have anything you'd like to leave us with, sir? Anything you'd like to plug?
No, just, I'm glad you brought up the rally stuff. I heard a couple nights ago this whole thing about there being all this negative stuff, which I wasn't aware of, and it's just like, why would anybody even do that? If you don't like it, just don't go. But
exactly,
I'm glad that you addressed it.
Had to, man, had to. The one that strikes at night, Mike from GunTube. Anything you'd like to add?
Shall not be infringed. There we go. That's it.
Unfortunately, that's not all that needs to be said. I wish it were.
I wish it was too, but other than that, no, I don't have anything else to add. Other than I might do something after this. Just kind of shoot.
If you can check it out, folks. let me say thank you to everybody out there in the chat. I really appreciate you stopping by at our not regularly scheduled day or time to spend this time listening to me bloviate and self-promote like a shameless whore. You know, if I don't promote me, who will, right? So thank you for sticking around for this. I appreciate it. As always, I'm humbled and amazed that you've chosen to spend your time with me. And I can't tell you how much it means. Remember, let your Congress critters and elected representatives know what you think. Don't ever leave up the pressure on them, because they need to feel the heat before they see the light. And I hope that you'll come join us in applying some heat to them on Saturday, November 2nd from 1 to 4 on the west lawn of the Capitol. And until then, send them snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, smoke signals, carrier pigeons, semaphores, heliographs, runners, bicycle messengers. Do whatever you have to do to let them know what you think, and never, ever, ever give up the fight. Thanks.